Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to our very first, so maybe first annual Black History Month Oratory Showcase. My name is Anthony Bolden, and I serve as the Director of Programs for Chicago Debates. Before we get started, I would love for each of you who are watching from your homes, maybe from your car. If you are watching from your car, don't look at the screen. Maybe you're watching from a school, for you to put in the chat where you're watching from, who you're rooting for, and why you're here. Why are you here? Maybe it's one of our speakers. Maybe you are a debater from one of our awesome schools within our Chicago Debate Network. But put in the chat who you are. We want to welcome you. We thank you so much for joining us. We thank you so much for your time and your attention. We know on this very snowy Chicago afternoon where the snow came out of nowhere, that you could be any place right now. I'm sure I'm hoping that you're somewhere warm. But again, we thank you so much for taking out the time to be with us. Our students are really excited to share their speeches with you. And I know that you are going to be blown away by what they have to say and the preparation that they've put in for this moment. Black History Month is something that's extremely special to Chicago Debates. And each year we seek to highlight important individuals in our community who have done remarkable things for the advancement of our people, our community, and not just Black people, but as a nation and as a human race. And our students today will share a topic or from a topic that we've asked each of them to write a speech on, and it was entitled, or the topic was, "In Celebration of Black History Month, I've been most inspired by the story of fill in the blank." So we wanted to hear from the students. We wanted to give them the agency to share who has inspired them as individuals. And I am so excited because I've had the opportunity to hear some of the speeches ahead of tonight's program. So you're going to learn so much, but you're also, some of you may relearn about some folks that you've heard of before. Maybe these are some of the same figures who inspire you. So I can talk on and on and on about the power of Black History Month, the power that our students have, and how much we want them to continue to use their voice to make a difference and to shine light on places that don't get enough. But I'm going to move out of the way and hand it over to my trusty sidekick. We are blessed to have an amazing program officer for school support, hailing from Tennessee with a nice Southern drawl. Her name is Devin Irish, and now Fingerroot, as she is recently married, and we're so excited about it. So I'm going to ask Devin to join me here. Devin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I am so excited for you all to get to hear these speeches that our students have been working so hard on. Like Anthony said, I've had the pleasure of getting to work with them this past week to help prepare them. And you guys are not going to believe what you're going to get ready to hear. They are amazing. But I won't keep you waiting any longer. I think we can bring up our very first student. Her name is Evandjelina. She is in 7th grade and she comes from Bell Elementary. So everybody, let's cheer her on.
It's nice to see everyone here, and today I'll be presenting my speech on Oprah Winfrey for Black History Month. So I'm just going to get started. Bravery shows up in everyday life when people have the courage to live their truth, their visions, and their dreams. Oprah Winfrey. This quote sums up the person I've always aspired to become, and because of Oprah Winfrey, this is the person I am now. Oprah's story was the influence and example I needed to become more courageous in life. So, and when I was asked, in celebration of Black History Month, whose story were you most inspired by? I knew who to pick. Oprah Winfrey. She gave me the inspiration I needed to become a valiant person who takes risks and is open for new opportunities. In the past, I couldn't have described myself as a brave person. I shied away from uncomfortable situations, from writing competitions to making friends, or even bringing something new to lunch. Even before I realized it, my reserved lifestyle started draining me. I felt barely alive, and it was as if life was on an endless loop. Wake up, go to school, eat lunch, come home, eat dinner, bed, repeat. I never did anything that ignited a fire in me. I never did anything of significance to the world, and that's why I felt disconnected from everything. Oprah Winfrey's story was the one that motivated me to start taking chances and jumping at opportunities. The multi-billionaire, the successful show network, once grew up in a rural town in Mississippi and went through struggles, like all of us. One particular story opened my eyes. In 1992, the Oprah Winfrey Show conducted an experiment about racial prejudice. It allowed people to see how illogical and ignorant racism is. And the experiment was controversial, it was daring, and it was brave. Many were enraged at Oprah for broadcasting that episode, but in the end, it had a powerful message. This episode showed me that you shouldn't be afraid of what people you, and you think is right. Oprah helped me realize that being constantly afraid of outside judgment stopped me from doing things that I aspired to do. Despite people's protests and vile remarks, Oprah could get her message to the world, and in the end, she ended up on top. In order to live my life to the fullest, I had to stop being so obsessed with people's words and opinions. I had to do what I thought was right. With that understanding, slowly but surely, I started coming out of my shell. I became more confident, more extroverted, and much less afraid of what strangers might think. All in all, my life changed for the better. Having heard the story of Oprah's courage and perseverance, you know why I chose her as the person that inspired me in celebration of Black History Month. Her story showed me that in order to do good in the world, you have to take risks and opportunities. You can't forever be sheltered from uncomfortable situations, so it's better to step out of your comfort zone now rather than later. In the end, because of Oprah's inspiration, living my truths, visions, and dreams wasn't a mere saying. It was my truth. Now, through this essay, I hope that I too inspired you to do things that will ignite a fire inside of you. I hope everyone liked that.
Great job. Thank you so much for presenting. Our second speaker is coming all the way from OA Thorp Elementary. They're in 6th grade, so everybody give it up for Ben Sweeney.
Hi, my speech is about Alice Coachman, who was the first Black woman to win an Olympic gold medal and was just a huge inspiration to me and to many other people. The year is 1948. The Olympics, now in London, are in full swing, and this year the high jump will be an event to remember. Jumping 5 feet and 6 inches into the air, Alice Coachman grabs the gold medal and becomes the first Black woman to win an Olympic gold medal thus far, and an inspiration to people worldwide. Let's look back a bit, though, and see how she got there. Alice was born in Albany, Georgia, on November 9th, 1923, to Fred and Evelyn Coachman. As the fifth of 10 children, she always had an itch to run, but because of segregation, she was constantly denied access to real tracks, new equipment, and the ability to join running teams. Because of this, she trained by herself, running across dirt roads and fields, using old equipment for high jump training. She even made equipment, specifically a crossbar for a high jump, out of wood and rope and similar materials herself. Eventually, when she went to high school, track and field coaches noticed her ability and supported her in running, including adding her to the lineups of their team. Around this time, she beat high jump records for both colleges and high schools around the United States. Soon, a college offered her a scholarship when she was only 16. She raced with and against multiple teams across the South. In her college years, she was proficient in many sports, including basketball and track and field. Her proficiency enabled her to be considered for the Olympics. Despite being a tad reluctant, she eventually, in front of 83,000 people watching, cleared the highest bar at quite a bit over 5 feet in the air. Alice Coachman died in 2014, but that doesn't mean her legacy faded. She's still recognized today and remains quite an inspiration. I personally competed in competitions across Chicago in track, and I consider myself to be a runner. That might be the reason I find Alice so inspiring, but it's probably more about how she got there by working so hard. She trained and she trained and she trained, and when people recognized her abilities, she skyrocketed. As a runner, I can assure you that running is hard. Training is hard. Just everything about it is hard. You need to have stamina and strength and the mindset to keep going. Along with her being a personal inspiration to me, though, she was also directly involved in helping others, which just makes her even more inspiring. As founder of the Alice Coachman Track and Field Foundation, she supported young and old athletes. Many young people, especially girls, were enabled and encouraged to participate in Olympic events and just general athletics by Alice's whim. Alice once said that she paved the way for all of them being athletes to come, and that certainly is true. Alice broke barriers and was recognized for doing so. She was inducted into 9 Halls of Fame, including the USA Track and Field Hall of Fame, and was the first African American to have an endorsement deal with Coca-Cola at the time. You can find her name on a school in Albany as well. Alice Coachman was proficient in many of the Olympic events. She mastered the 50-meter, 100-meter, and 400-meter, along with playing basketball most of her life and being a master at it. Overall, Alice was an incredible inspiration and was also a pioneer of diversity on the track and off of it, not letting Olympic win go to her head and helping others all the way.
Thank you so much, Ben. I don't know about everybody watching, but I didn't really know about Alice Coachman before this speech, and now I really want to run to my library so I can learn more about them. Thank you again, Ben, for educating us. Our next speaker is going to be Zaniyah Moore. They're in 8th grade, and they're coming from KIPP 1 Academy.
Hi, my name is Zaniyah Moore. I go to KIPP 1 Chicago. I'm in 8th grade, and I'm class 2026. I'm going to be a freshman in this summer, so yeah. I have been inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because not only did he play a role in the American Civil Rights Movement in the mid-1950s until his assassination, but he wanted to fight for equality and human rights for African Americans. He wanted to end racial segregation in the southern United States and discrimination against African Americans. Martin Luther King made a big impact on the world. He led a civil rights movement that focused on nonviolent protests. The purpose of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream, was to address and tell Americans the issues of segregation and racism against African Americans. Martin Luther King believed that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. He believed that African Americans should have the same rights as white people, such as equal facilities and treated like human beings. The world indeed is like a dream, and the treasures of the world are an alluring mirage. Like the apparent distance in the picture, things have no reality in themselves, but they are like he has. I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King Jr. that was announced on August 28, 1963, during the March on Washington, was a call for equality and freedom. It became one of the most defining moments of the Civil Rights Movement and one of the most iconic speeches in American history. It brought even greater attention to the Civil Rights Movement, which had been going on for several years after Martin Luther King's speech. His name was known to many more than before. It made Congress move faster and passed the Civil Rights Act. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I Have a Dream, is arguably one of the most famous speeches in history. It has taught millions that dreams have the tremendous power to keep us alive and give us hope. And from Martin Luther King's own life, one can gain innumerable lessons on faith, patience, sacrifice, and belief. Martin Luther King feared the fear of failure, the fear of being called an imposter, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being good enough, but he believed that light cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Martin Luther King turns attention to his listeners' emotions as he quotes passages from the Bible, My country, this a thee. and the stern Negro spiritual is the elegant balance between these two elements, the intellectual and the emotional, the head and the heart, that makes his speech so compelling and satisfying. What I learned from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was to always treat people with respect and kindness and never judge anyone from their skin color based on how they look. And that no matter what, and to always know the why behind what you're doing. Martin Luther King shaped what I am today because he showed me independence and peace and freedom. Well, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Zaniyah. That was awesome. All right, we're going to bring up our fourth speaker now. Their name is Kennedy White. They're from Skinner West Elementary, and they're in 6th grade.
Hi, my name is Kennedy White, and the person that inspired me for Black History Month is Mary Jane Patterson. I'm going to start my speech now. It's important to note that Black people are discriminated against constantly, especially Black women. Now, prejudice doesn't come from you inside. You're not born with it. I believe it comes from things that you may hear during your youth, untruthful and hurtful things. A story that is untold amongst many youth and adults is the story of Mary Jane Patterson. Today, I'm going to share with you her legacy and all of the greatness she has instilled in people and still is doing even after her tragic passing. She was a noble educator that paved the way for young African American students. Because of her, many underprivileged students were able to have a better education. Born on September 12, 1840, Mary Jane Patterson is known for being the first African American woman to graduate college and earn her bachelor's degree. Her parents, Henry Irving Patterson and Emmeline Eliza Patterson, had Mary along with around what researchers believe to be 7 to 10 siblings. She was born into slavery and moved into Ohio with her family in the mid-1850s. Around the age of 17, Miss Patterson went away to college. She's a role model to young people like me. She worked very hard and she did a lot of things that were abnormal due to standards back then, like taking the gentleman's course, which was 4 years long, instead of the 2-year women's course after she completed a year of Oberlin's College preparatory coursework. Later, she graduated college and earned her Bachelor of Arts degree. She's said to be the first African American woman to do so. Miss Patterson spent a year teaching in Chillicothe, Ohio, at the age of 22. She left Ohio to teach at the Institute of Colored Youth in Pennsylvania. Later, she moved to Washington, D.C. to teach at the Preparatory High School for Colored Youth. After 2 years, she was promoted to principal, but 1 year later, she was appointed to assistant principal when Richard T. Greener stepped on. He was the first Black graduate of Harvard University. Sadly, she passed away at age 54 on September 24, 1894. Mary Jane Patterson was a very hardworking person. She was the first African American woman to graduate from college and earn her bachelor's degree, as I have said before. Mary Jane Patterson accomplished this by being stubborn and standing her ground. She broke standards. Under her tenure, the school did very well and became known as a prestigious institution for secondary education. My source states that her personality being lively and animated helped her establish the high school's bold intellectual standards. I feel that Mary Jane Patterson is a role model for young African American women like me. She's a wholesome person, and I feel this way because she noticed how women and Black people were treated differently, and she participated in the act of helping youngsters who were experiencing struggles due to segregation. She's a very selfless person and thought of others more than herself. She did this by spending time and resources to teach African American youth and give them an education that they might not have experienced without her help. If I met Mary Jane Patterson, I would say thank you for paving the way for me. You had an impact on my education. I would ask, how did you cope with that negativity that surrounded you? What did you say to yourself to get back up? I would also ask, why did you decide to start teaching? And did you always know that you wanted to teach? We can learn that you should never give up and to always follow your dreams. You should always keep your head up and never let prejudice get in the way of your success. And remember that you will always have to work your hardest, like Mary Jane Patterson did. Now and in the future, you will always have people against you and working to beat you. Mary Jane Patterson once said, "Our involvement in the civil rights movement is what sent us into our involvement against apartheid." This means to me that in order to solve a problem, you have to dig deeper and get to the roots of it. And that is exactly what Mary Jane Patterson did. She chose to teach at the only place that Black people were welcome. To me, that is very noble of her, to step in and choose to be a part of the change. This is something that we can all learn from. but you have a choice in life. What you choose to do with that is on you. I think that Mary Jane Patterson made a good choice. There are many things to be learned from Mary Jane Patterson. No matter your race or gender, she is hardworking, vivacious, and indefatigable. She was a giant in history that may always be remembered. Because of you, Mary Jane Patterson, I and so many others you have inspired know that we have a place in the world. Thank you, Mary Jane Patterson, and thank you all for listening to my speech.
All right, thank you so much, Kennedy, for educating us about such an inspiring and empowering person. Next, I'm going to be bringing up Sadeen Haj. They are in 8th grade and they come from Nathan Hale Elementary.
Hello, I'm doing my speech on Malcolm X, who was an African-American Muslim convert, and I chose him because I am also a Muslim, so his story stood out to me. So in celebration of Black History Month, I've been most inspired by the story of Malcolm X. The most inspiring thing about Malcolm was that his life was a chronology of changes. Malcolm X was one of many civil rights movement leaders and was a spokesman for the Nation of Islam, also known as NOI. His childhood is heartbreaking. When he was only 6 years old, his father, a Baptist minister, was murdered by white people. This led to his family becoming poor. Malcolm X and his siblings had to go to a foster home since their mother was taken to an insane asylum. He wanted to pursue being a lawyer, but the teacher at school discouraged him and told him to become a carpenter instead. This is when Malcolm fully realized the deeply rooted racial disparity, racism, and racial oppression in American society. He then became rebellious and fell into drugs, gang violence, etc. This all stopped, though, because he went to jail from 1946 to 1952. During this time, his brother Reginald guided him to the Nation of Islam. He rejected all the prohibited stuff in our religion, such as eating pork, smoking, and gambling. Instead of practicing his old habits, he spent his time learning more about Islam in the prison library. He even memorized the dictionary. Malcolm's ideologies and teachings evolved to accommodate his new understanding. The irony was that as a place that is meant to strip all of one's freedoms, prison actually set Malcolm free mentally. Malcolm finally had the chance to set himself free. By educating himself on the truth of his history, he felt liberated that he managed to gain knowledge of a history that was not whitewashed and gain an understanding of himself, which ultimately shaped his attitude towards racial oppression. This made him be viewed differently when compared to Martin Luther King, who only preached peace. Malcolm motivated his followers to support themselves by any means necessary and believed that they should take more action rather than do sit-ins and boycotts. Malcolm X began as someone tossed in jail for criminal activities with no prior interest in Black history, rights, or religion. Being introduced to the Nation of Islam led him to follow Elijah Muhammad, leader of NOI, every order because he highly respected him and he believed in his every word regarding race and religion. He saw through Elijah's true colors even after Elijah committed adultery, and Malcolm's views on him and NOI changed significantly. After going to Hajj, he became an independent leader who changed his belief from all whites are devils to sincere white people who were good and could help further Black people's causes because of his change in religious views too. Sadly, he was assassinated on February 21, 1965 by Audubon Ballroom. Overall, his attitude towards race and religion provided an alternative method to Black people who were unsatisfied with the methods of activism as taught by MLK. His attitudes reflected his teachings that are still relevant in society now, just as much as they were in the 1960s. YouTube video, Why Inmates Are Converting to Islam, by AG Plus mentioned, Malcolm X's legacy still resonates today, more than 50 years after this death. There are still many cases of race, privilege, and power that ring true today, such as police brutality, an unjust and racist criminal system, the whitening of history, and the white allies that do not target their own communities for change. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. My favorite fact about Malcolm X is that he actually did debate while he was in prison. And I am so glad that Sadeen came up and educated us about him. Next, I'm going to welcome the floor to our youngest speaker tonight. They come from National Teachers Academy, so everybody give a big round of applause for our 5th grade Sanjana Makkuni.
So before I start my speech, I would just like to introduce myself. My name is Sanjana Makkuni. I'm a 5th grader from National Teachers Academy. And I will now begin my speech. Thank you. Black History Month celebrates the rich cultural heritage, triumphs, and tribulations that are an inalienable part of our country's history. There is no American history without African American history, said Sarah Kaplan, Executive Director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center. The Black experience, she said, is embedded in everything we think of as American history. In honor of Black History Month, I've been most inspired by the story of Dr. Nelson Mandela. Dr. Mandela was a South African political leader, social rights activist, anti-apartheid revolutionary, and philanthropist who served as the first Black president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. His government focused on dismantling the country's legacy of apartheid by tackling institutionalized racism and fostering racial reconciliation. He directed a campaign of peaceful, non-violent defiance against the South African government for 2 decades. In 1994, after Dr. Mandela was elected president of South Africa, Archbishop Desmond Tutu excitedly welcomed him to Cape Town and said, "One man inspires us all. One man inspires the whole world." And the statement perfectly sums up Dr. Mandela's life. He was truly a great person and an inspirational character. We can learn a lot from his life and quotes. The world will always remember such great people who have struggled for the betterment of the people. In 1993, Dr. Mandela was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to dismantle the country's apartheid system. For generations to come, Dr. Mandela will be a source of inspiration for civil rights activists worldwide. Our country has an extensive, long-standing problem with race, equality, and social justice. There's no denying that. Institutional discrimination has reared its ugly head in nearly every facet of society. It wasn't until the 1960s that outright discrimination was banned. But even then, our relationship with the justice system and law enforcement has always been fragile at best. It could arguably be said that within the halls of justice, our humanity was never a priority. Bad apples often come from rotten trees, and that tree of the United States of America is rooted in systemic racism, particularly when it comes to law enforcement that has roots back to slavery. The bias Black people often face is unfortunately as American as apple pie. The threat to the safety and overall well-being of our children is very much real. Change is happening, but not at the pace that is necessary or that is possible. We can feel optimistic and hopeful when we juxtapose the two truths facing America. One is racism, and the other is millions of people in America and throughout the world are able to look beyond skin color and race. Youth and education are the two catalysts for social change. The youth have the spirit and enthusiasm. We just need to show them how. While one generation is getting older, we need the next generation to use their voice on behalf of our people and to bury the racist attitudes of the previous generation for good. Education is transformative and is a great equalizer. We need to bring education as a platform and harness its potential to the maximum. According to Dr. Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Perseverance and fortitude. These lessons from Dr. Mandela's trailblazing path are still relevant. Now is the time we need to regroup and reshape. This is not a time to retreat. We need to organize and develop better strategies to make the world better and safer for all Americans for generations to come. It is time to rise to the occasion for the children of color across this great country of ours. Only we can become the catalyst of change, because it is our attitudes that will bring the societal changes that will shape the America of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that speech. I'm so excited to see where you go. Last but not least, I'm going to bring up Clarke Burnett. They're coming from Skinner West Elementary, and they are in 6th grade. Oh.
Hi, thank you all for having me, and thank you to everyone in the comments. I'm going to get started. Imagine being in a swamp, hiding under the moss-filled trees, carrying your child and a small bag. You hear the vicious sound of barking dogs, neighing horses, and angry white men with torches of flaming fire creeping up behind you. You are running for your life. This is what enslaved African Americans had to go through, and Carl Walker's work demonstrates these horrible experiences. I have no interest in making work that doesn't elicit a feeling, she says. The hanging, the capturing, and the abuse our ancestors had to go through to get us where we are now is something that I will be forever grateful for, and I think is something we should think and research about, not just in Black History Month, but any month. I have been inspired by Carl Walker because, well, I can relate to her. I'm an African American young woman who makes art as well, and seeing Carl Walker, her experiences, and her art inspires me in two ways: to make art with profound meanings and to learn about the history of slavery through the concepts of art. As I learned from my art teacher, art is creative communication, and Carl Walker's art demonstrates this perfectly. And I believe even people who cannot relate to her can find sympathy in the experiences that she illustrates. Now, the only question left is, who is Carl Walker? Carl Walker is an African American artist who is known for being a painter, sculptor, and visual artist whose art depicts race, stereotypes, violence, and history, generally from slavery. She was born in Stockton, California on November 26, 1969, making her 51 years old. She studied at the Atlanta College of Art, followed by the Rhode Island School of Design. Carl Walker knew what her passion was at the young age of 3. In her exact words, she states, "One of my earliest memories involves sitting on my dad's lap in his studio in the garage of our house and watching him draw. I remember thinking, I want to do that too, and pretty much then and there, at the age of 3, decided that I was an artist, just like Dad." These are a few of Carl Walker's astonishing artworks. 1. The rich soil down there. This piece of art implies the power that white Americans had over enslaved people. In this painting, there are African Americans portrayed as Black figures carrying the white figures, portrayed as the slave owners. This shows that our ancestors had to carry so much weight off their shoulders, yet they got nothing for it in return. Two, salvation. Carl Walker states, "The silhouette says a lot with very little information, but that's also what the stereotype does." This piece of art inspires me the most because it captures the essence of the horrors and struggles enslaved people went through, trying to escape with nothing but faith. In this painting, there is a woman in a river with her arm reaching out in hopes of freedom. Knowing that Carl Walker has made such amazing silhouettes actually motivated me to make a piece of art of my own. Here I have a sketch I drew recently of a woman with an afro, one of the ethnic styles worn throughout history. But if you look closely, you can see that the afro is actually completely made of roses. I made this a meaning inside of a meaning. The roses are there to represent that you can find beauty and remorse in something that is negatively criticized by society. Just like Carl Walker's art, Sometimes slavery is told as just something from the past, but we all know deep inside that there's way more to it. Even in escaping from slavery with fear in your heart shows the compassion and bravery my ancestors had to go through to get us where we are today. In conclusion, I believe that this Black figure strongly contributes to Black History Month because she isn't a widely known artist, yet her work is absolutely fascinating. It has meanings beyond just a piece of work that relate back to slavery, which teaches people about the heinous history of enslaved African Americans. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is all of our speakers, and I'm so impressed. All of these speeches were written by themselves. They've been practicing so hard. It's going to be really hard for us to decide the winners. What we're going to do, oh, there's Anthony coming to take over for me.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Yeah, I'm sitting here kind of blown away and trying to really gather myself. The students really blew us away. And I mean, we knew they would do a great job, but the amount of information I learned tonight, I hope you too are inspired. I hope that those who are watching, I hope you've learned about individuals who you've never heard of before. And I hope it inspires you to go and do some research on your own and find out about more amazing Black contributors to our history. Now, what we're going to do, because it does take time to choose a winner, we're going to take a 1-minute break, maybe two, to look at the ballots and determine a winner. But let me start off by saying what I said to our students as we were preparing for the event. Everyone's a winner here, and I'm not just saying that in terms of participation trophies. Everyone has done a phenomenal job. And I told them, as long as you try your hardest, everyone's getting a gift from Chicago Debates. So they know that. And students, I want to let you know you did try your hardest, so you will be getting that gift. But we will be back in a minute or two to let you know our first, second, and third place speakers for this evening. All right. To say this was a challenge would be an understatement, but let me first just thank our staff for participating as judges this evening. And let me reiterate one more time how amazed and blown away we are. Our students never cease to amaze us with their effort and with their sheer impressiveness. So students, again, thank you so much for your hard work. Now I will we'll start from third place and then work our way up. Devin, you're going to be my drum roller, right? So if you could turn yourself off mute and give me a drum roll, and we will begin to share the ballots that we received. Coming in at third place, representing, I believe, Skinner West, if I'm not mistaken, we have Kennedy White.
Congratulations.
Kennedy.
Thank you, everyone. Just want to say thank you to just everyone. Just thank you.
Kennedy, we have a quick question. What led you to choose the figure that you chose, Miss Mary?
I am very passionate about my education, and I think that she was a great leader in not only African American people, but African American women. And she showed us that you can do anything, and you shouldn't let standards keep you down, and you shouldn't let other people tell you that you can't do something.
Awesome. Thank you, Kennedy.
Thank you.
All right. You ready for the next one, Devin?
All right, drum roll.
Drum roll. Coming in second place, also hailing from Skinner West. Can we give it up for Clarke Burnett? Come on. Now, I was watching the chat, and I saw Clarke had a bunch of family from all over the world rooting for her. Folks from East St. Louis and all over the place. Clarke, congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
much for sharing that art with us. It was so beautiful. Why don't you tell us, how did you decide to share about this amazing Black history figure?
So I decided to share about Carl Walker because I felt like a lot of Black influencers, I feel like they kind of get hidden under the light by more popular people. And I thought that learning about someone who's more on the underrated side would be really informative. And yeah, and I really, really love art. So I thought Carl Walker would be perfect for this, especially because I can relate to her as well.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again. Thank you for submitting a speech. Thank you for your participation. All right, my friend Devin, we have one more. We have to announce who is number one.
All right, biggest drum roll yet.
The biggest drum roll. So wherever you are, I know we have our students here in the chat. Drum roll here, everyone. All right. Hailing from the National Teachers Academy, our youngest speaker for the day, who just came with fire in her bones. Won't you help me? Well, I think she told me to call her Sunny. So we're going to welcome Sanjana back here, coming in at first place. Won't you put your hands together? There she is. Awesome. Congratulations.
I just want to say thank you, especially to my father, Dr. J. Makkuni. He truly helped me. He was really helping me with the editing. And my mother, especially my mother, Ramya Vijay. Thank you to my mom. And shout out to my sister. She really she helped me write it. And she also said, you're very passionate about fighting for civil rights and encouraging education. Why don't you do Dr. Nelson Mandela? And I really have to thank my entire family. Thank you.
Wow. What an amazing feat. Congratulations. We are so proud of each of you. Now, I want everyone to see each other's faces, so I'm going to bring all of our speakers onto the screen here just so that we can give them what I like to call a virtual high five. So those who are still watching, we want you to just, if you don't have your phone and you can't give a high five, we want to invite you to just put the number 5 in the chat and give a virtual high five to all of our speakers, all of our participants. Congratulations to all of them. You guys were incredible. And we're so grateful to each of you for participating today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To our coaches, thank you as well. To the amazing Devin for helping prepare them. Thank you. Yes, high fives all around. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we want to see. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to remove you all. Thank you, students. Stay there. Stay there. We'll talk after. We'll talk after. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Man, I am just so excited. Like there's a Bible verse or a story that says something about like fire shut up in your bones. I think that was Elijah. That's how I feel after hearing all of these speeches. These students have me ready to do another event next week. But I know my staff will kill me as we are getting ready for our Red and Maroon Conference Championship this weekend, where our high school students will culminate their year within their conferences. We have our middle school city championship taking place the first weekend of March. I believe that's March 5th. And then at the 4th weekend of the year, we will culminate with our high school city championship, where all of our top high school debate teams will come together for a tournament of champions, if you would, where we will see who will win out for each division. To each of you, once again, we thank you so much for your time this evening. We hope that you will stay connected with Chicago Debates as we have so many amazing things on the horizon. We're looking forward to actually even next week, our 25th year Impact Showcase will take place virtually live right here at the same time, 6 p.m. So if you don't have anything to do on a Thursday evening, join us again on YouTube Live, where we will highlight the impact that our organization has been able to have over the last year, the year 2021, especially highlighting the phenomenal impact that debate can have and has had on our students' lives. I want to thank my staff, but most importantly, our fearless and highly supportive executive director, Dr. Toinette Gunn. She sends her greetings and has been supporting us each step of the way as we've been putting on this event for our students. So thank you all. Thank you for joining us this evening. We hope you have a great night, and we'll see you at our next speech event. Good night, everyone.